Welcome to the Maud and Hugh Piano Duo podcast. I'm Hugh.
I'm Mutter, and this is part 3 of the interview with Professor Lambert Orkis, the interview that we shot in the winter.
Last year,
yes. And for this part, Professor Orkis describes his musical journey shifting from a soloistic career to collaborative career. His connections with orchestras and soloists. Of course, we all know about the renowned violinist Anne-Sophie Mutter. Professor Orkis has been playing with her for almost 4 decades, I would say. And the way he describes their collaboration, their connection, is a musical marriage.
One of the things I find most fascinating about Professor Orkis, the more I'm getting to know him, is how young at heart and mind he is. This is a man who keeps right up to date with the latest technology. This is a man after my own heart.
Yep.
I mean, I love technology. I want to be just like him when I grow up. He loves photography, high-end photography. In fact, we were just talking recently about his new Mac Studio computer that he just got with the M2 chip.
Hugh was so jealous.
I'm very jealous. I can't wait. But we were able to talk about technology on the highest level. He just keeps up with that. He understands technology's role and also the role of being an entrepreneur and the role of marketing for classical musicians to survive.
And this was part of the advice that he, I would say in a shy manner, he gave us, because it's never a fixed formula, a fixed recipe. Well, you have to do this after you graduate, follow this, and you will have success. It's such a precarious advice that you can give to someone.
Sure.
I remember, speaking of which, since you mentioned that earlier that you want to be just like him when you grow up. I remember you mentioning this to him, and I remember his answer. We were actually in the car, and again, it's a good thing to listen to things. He said, "No, just be yourself."
Well, yes, but there are...
No, but it's a very, very important,
good
very, very good answer.
But if there's one person I could emulate more qualities of, I think Lambert Orkis certainly has many of the qualities that I admire and hope and aspire to. So, but yes, you're right. He has the flexibility of mind to understand the changing landscapes of culture, of classical music role in the world, and how technology can help and also perhaps hinder. Just a wonderful, broad-minded, forward-thinking human and artist. And anyway, we hope you enjoy this conclusion of part 3 of our interview with pianist Lambert Orkis.
One of the remarkable thing that is a takeaway, if I can say so. We both studied as piano majors.
Yes.
As solo a cappella,
right.
Solo piano majors. And yet you have crafted this rich life, what we call collaboratively.
Yeah.
Working with orchestras, working with soloists, working with other people. It's the same kind of path happened to me for many years, where I was, training to be a soloist, but I ended up, just because it was more fun to play with friends, I ended up playing. My career was also defined by mainly playing lots of different repertoire with lots of different instruments. And I always thought it was strange that the richness of collaborative piano playing isn't more widely known. You have a lot of young pianists who are out to carve their own path in the world by themselves, and they don't get along very well with other people.
Well, I went in that direction because I was better suited for it. In order to have a solo piano career, there's probably 59 different things you have to do well, one of which is playing the piano well.
Yeah.
I had difficulties in certain areas of solo play. I'm one of those people that I've done a number of things that so-called solo pianists would be envious of doing. I premiered a major piano concerto, did it in Carnegie Hall, did it in Europe. Rostropovich gave it the time of day. We spent almost all NSO rehearsal time on that concerto. Wow. So I have a taste of that, and I've done some recordings of solo piano. my wife would tell you better than I would. It was not something that came easily to me, and it hurt my personal life.
In terms of the...
I think you need a certain psyche in order to do this.
And a person to accept it.
Andrei Previn at dinner once. I mentioned Andrei Previn because he was married to Anne-Sophie for a time, and I got to be friends with him. Sitting down at dinner, Lambert, after you have played a piece 2 or 3 times, you have it memorized, don't you? Oh, no way. Then he said, well, you don't have it. I said, you're right. That's the kind of talents that are out there that can do that kind of thing. I could do that kind of thing, though, with score and with ensemble, because when I was studying here at Temple, I had a piano trio going. I was playing Brahms' Second Piano Concerto, pictures at an exhibition, which Jimmy Felton of the Evening Bulletin said, at the age of 22, Mr. Orkis is a pianist to be reckoned with. For the first time in my life, I heard the pictures at an exhibition played on the piano to my satisfaction.
Wow.
But I was also playing for these 47 people. I devoted Sunday to learning that repertoire. So, see, I had that ability in this area. You have to make a living.
No.
Now, I wasn't necessarily stuck on a particular set of repertoire. I liked playing the piano, and making music. And if my colleagues were friends, I mean, yeah, it could be fun, but it was also hard work.
So you really were open-minded and willing to try
Yes.
anything.
Now, if you let your ego get in the way, I have fought for my rights of having a certain level of recognition. You have to. But you have to do that in any field.
That's true.
You have to know your worth, and you have to earn the respect, and at some certain levels you have to demand that respect. And if you don't get it, go to another alternative.
Thank you so much for sharing so much of your amazing life, career, your incredible accomplishments and collaborations. Now, here, of course, at Temple University, I mean, what a privilege for students to have the opportunity to work with you. I'm wondering if maybe we could spend a few moments, would like to get your advice, your wisdom. Looking at the world of today, 21st century, and classical music, where it stands in the incredible milieu of entertainment choices and musical, artistic options to explore, and the young people who are coming through institutions like Temple University, trying to figure out how to make a living.
Yeah.
How to make a life.
That's a good
in music.
question.
What advice, or what do you see in terms of future hope for young pianists, and what advice would you give a talented young pianist today in terms of what they should do? Because I remember when I was at my last lesson at Curtis, after studying there for 8 years, and I just had the courage to ask my teacher, okay, I've been studying, now what? How do I have a career? How do I make a living? What do I do next? What should I do? And I'll never forget his answer. He just put up his hands and shrugged. It's like, I don't know, kid, good luck.
Yeah. Well, in the solo piano field, people enter competitions. I like to point out that there are a lot of competitions.
Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah,
There are
really.
lots.
Lots of them. And I would say in most cases, there are occasional exceptions. There's a winner. What happens to the winner? Oftentimes, whoever has won has prepared a set of repertoire, and that's essentially it. Orchestras you'll have a year or so. Maybe you have a recording, got some money, maybe play with an orchestra or a couple of orchestras. But if you want to continue, you've got to have a body of repertoire. And that has to be, if you have it on hand, that can lead. The most important thing at a concert is to be invited back. Yeah. You get invited back, You have to draw an audience, because they have to pay their bills. People have to like it. So you have to have variety. You have to be somewhat entrepreneurial in this field. You have to get familiar with technology. Maybe sometimes you need to also use that technology or get into it in a way that it pays some bills. There's nothing wrong with that. If your heart is bent on having some sort of performing career, you may have to do things you didn't think you were going to be doing. Some people find themselves teaching people who are quite young. Look, we need musicians at the foundation of society. I mean, it's all this business of touring and going around the world. It looks very glamorous. It's really hard work. And as you go through life, it just gets even harder. I'm not downplaying at all. It's wonderful to play in these halls to capacity audiences who love what you're doing. It's a real rush. But it's also something to be building people up. One need not be exclusive of the other. If you find yourself having to do other things, perhaps you can always leave some time to work on what you really want to do. That's going to be hard. But most people are, even if they enter a competition and don't win it, take heart. As I mentioned before, not everyone who wins a competition has a career in music. But I do know this, that every time you sit at your instrument and there's someone present, they hear you and they make a judgment. They either are moved by what you have played or not. And if you keep on that quality, it's like gambling in a way. At some point, maybe someone's going to take notice and do something for you.
Something else.
You know?
Did you have this kind of mindset when you were at Curtis as a student? Actually, let me put it this way. Had you received this kind of advice regarding a career when you were
No.
at Curtis?
No.
Did you have any idea of a career that you wanted?
No.
Okay.
I went to Curtis because I was told that's what you should do.
Remember, the lessons with Mrs. Sokoloff were very expensive.
Yep.
I made a deal with myself that if I didn't get into Curtis, I was going to quit the piano because it was just too expensive. Go do something else. I was really ready to just because I loved the piano, but I didn't love seeing my parents sacrifice all that money for that. Remember, it was.
It's hard.
It was a very hard decision.
But I graduated from Curtis in '65, and I can remember even back then, which maybe looks like the glory days, but people were talking about how difficult it was to get into the profession.
Even then.
Even then. That's the other thing, being willing to do unusual things. I didn't have any training in modern music at Curtis.
The wonderful open-mindedness you had to.
Well, I just wanted to play. And I'd like to point out the fact that the keyboard has been the interface which has allowed us to evolve into something else. Electric pianos. There are all kinds of possibilities. This is a hard sell, I must say. Often the complaint is, well, it doesn't sound like a piano. But that's not the point. It makes other sounds. Maybe you can make music with that. It might be interesting. Doesn't feel like a piano. Well, neither does a forte piano, they tell you.
Speaking of technology.
Yeah.
That's another area where I just have this incredible admiration for you. You are you know, you are as open-minded about technology. You're a technology buff yourself. And I was wondering if you could share some of your technology passions, both real and fictitious.
Oh, I'm getting very cranky about technology.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, why is that?
The iPad doesn't work.
The lack of a tactile sense.
Yeah.
On an iPad, it's just, I don't know, I find myself getting, I can feel this. I can feel that. I can't feel anything. I like it on cameras though. See, I like the fact that I can program buttons. Now I can feel it and go rapidly to one thing to another. But yeah, we have to use computers. There's no way we can have all this. You can't keep all that stuff in your memory. You can't have your house get so cluttered with papers and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Mrs. Sokolov, when she was 90, she, said, well, this internet thing is kind of important. I think I'm going to learn how to use it.
That's right.
Age of 90.
She did.
She did.
Well, I heard a few, maybe a year before she passed away, I felt like I called her up and I felt like I was back in the class, She knew all my strong and weak points and went right after me again.
Oh, wow.
She would keep up with everybody on Facebook with her iPad. I mean, that's remarkable to have that open-mindedness. But you're also an incredibly talented photographer, too.
Oh, I take pictures of birds.
Beautiful, beautiful pictures of birds. And you have quite the camera and lens collection.
I'm pretty good with a long focal length, but I admire people who take pictures of people. I'm a little shy about that.
Now, I'm a Canon person.
You're Canon.
You are
a Nikon person.
Which camera brand do you like to work with?
Nikon.
Nikon.
Yeah. I'm using the, excuse me, yeah, people say Nikon, then they say Nikon. In Japan, they say Nikon, so I am.
And rumor has it, you are a Star Trek buff.
Oh, I am. Oh, that's true.
See, my heart goes with this. This is just a man after my own heart.
Yeah.
Can you just tell a little bit about your love of Star Trek, why you like it so much?
I don't think I discovered it. It was the first love of my life. It was over her house. We were engaged too. It didn't work out. But she said, "You're going to like this." She put on Star Trek. She was right. I liked it. Possibilities. That's what I like about it. Possibilities. They find a way of challenging you. Of course, Spock is one of my favorite characters, dealing with emotions. I relate to that. I used to have, as a child, a bad temper.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Kind of out of control, bad temper.
And the character of Spock is the unemotional, the one who tries to not convey emotion and relies on logic. Would you say...
Half human, though.
Half human?
Yep.
I'm finding it.
How were you able to overcome your emotional temperament?
I think the discipline of the piano helped. It doesn't get that. Having a temper tantrum doesn't get you anything. I found out there were better ways of getting what I wanted.
You told me once that you were banned from practice rooms with Curtis just because you broke some strings or something like that.
Yeah, that was stupidity. That's a rather complicated story.
You didn't do that.
Oh, we did other very naughty things at Curtis. We had,
yeah, there was some pranks that used to go on.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever go to afternoon tea?
All the time.
I never did.
You never did?
I watched from a distance.
Why?
Don't know.
Was it socially uncomfortable to be part of?
Don't know.
Interesting.
I would go into the Mrs. Bach room because they would have it in the common room.
Yes, yeah.
And I'd go into the Bach room and watch it from a distance.
That was the time we could get free food,
And Madame Sokolov would be there presiding.
And she presided almost till she died.
That's right.
That's right. Wow. That old Russian samovar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably the same one.
Remember her bun?
Oh, yeah, of course.
The needle?
I think she was very proud of the fact that she once fell down, and she said, "That hair bun saved my life. It helped me from getting my skull cracked open," or something like that. She slept with it like that, I think.
Did she?
Oh my gosh.
That was the rumor.
What drove me nuts her putting her pin. This hairpin was this long through it.
And that was the kind of
And
old-fashioned.
she would jam it through it, and I thought it would hit her skull.
That was the fashion. I used to wear the kind of thing as a
Did
kid.
you?
I hate it. My mom insisted on me. Yeah, okay.
Mrs. Bach driving up in that sloped trunk Bentley. That was great fun. No, I'm rather reticent as a person and just kind of.
And yet, your career has been marked by how you connect with people.
That's through music. That's a musical language. It's probably what's led me to photography, because I'm interested in birds. And I'm just reading now yet another, my wife puts this in front of me and said, "Oh, that's a great idea," about owls and communication and how they're discovering it's a lot more complicated than anyone ever thought. All those hoots are not just repeated hoots. Each one has a slight different something, which is communicating something. So you listen to bird song, and now I realize why I have always found bird song difficult to recognize, because each bird has its own variant, and it's regional.
Like accents.
Like the accent, yeah.
And they're discovering that certain burrowing owls, which should be the same species, ones that live up in the Pacific and ones that live in Brazil, don't speak the same language.
That's Professor Orkis, thank you so much for taking the time to share so much about your life and the musical richness that has been part of your life and which you're imparting to your students.
Well, thank you for inviting me. You have become Mr. Philadelphia in so many ways. And it's wonderful hearing. I've rarely played piano duo, but hearing what the two of you are doing, it's quite wonderful.
It has been such a privilege to be a student again, and I hope we can do this many more times. I mean, to have lessons with you, it's.
I don't know if they're lessons. I just give you my opinion.
I love it.
And you go where you want with it.
I hope I can always be able to play for you and to get your opinions.
Well, thank you for playing so well.
Well.
And also, you're talking about technology. Look at this array here, and you're into the video world. That's wonderful.
That's why we're like kindred spirits.
I'm getting used to this.
Well, it's a wonderful thing for the younger generation, because they're going to have to avail themselves of this technology.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
Yeah. But you recognize that. And I think you encourage that. That's very refreshing, because I know many musicians who, kind of bury their heads in the sand.
Yeah,
and just
back
try
away.
To pretend it doesn't exist, or.
Well, it does exist, and we have to do it.
So this concludes our first episode with our first guest in the podcast. Thank you so much for having this wonderful time, and for me it's an honor just to sit down and listen. And you haven't written any book on your memoirs, but this is kind of oral memoirs.
Yeah. Maybe someday.
Is it a future project? Yeah.
Well, I'm collecting material just because I want to organize it, and it could very well make its way into some sort of book, I imagine. We'll see.
Hopefully this gives you a little bit of an outlet.
Thanks for having me here. This has been great fun to spend some time just putting forward some ideas.
Your generous spirit. We're so appreciative. Again, I hope more, I hope not only more musicians more people will come to appreciate your wonderful musical output, but also, really that we bring some recognition to the incredible institution here.
Here's a great place. So you're all soldiers for music, and we invite people to come join us to be soldiers in our corps.
Absolutely. For the Mada and Hugh Show, I'm Hugh.
I'm Mada. We'll see you next time.